Hi, everyone. This is Michael Gerard, and I'm finishing up the series on the exaltations of the planets with a look at the exaltation and fall of the planet Venus. So, what is exaltation? Once again, it's the idea that a planet is lifted up. Other astrologers have described it as a planet who is an honored guest in that sign or the highest expression of the planet. And when it comes to the essential dignity of any given planet, exaltation is often considered second only to domicile. Domicile, however, suggests the most of the planet, both good and bad. So in some ways, exaltation could be considered perhaps even better than domicile, if maybe not quite as strong. So every one of the classical astrological planets, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, and the Moon, has a sign of exaltation as well as a specific degree of exaltation. And I'll give a couple of sources, including an interesting recent source on the Babylonian normal stars that actually changes the degree of exaltation of the sun from 19 degrees of Aries to 9 degrees of Aries. But it should be said that not every sign has an exaltation lord. There are only seven planets and there are 12 astrological signs, so there's only one exaltation per sign or per planet, I should say, and therefore there are five signs that don't have that. So Kira Ryberg references exaltation as a kind of secondary rulership of a sign, and in its absence, which is to say those five signs, triplicity then becomes the secondary lord rather than exaltation. So listen to her podcast, The Threads of Fate, for more information on that. So let's talk about Venus. So Venus is a unifying force that harmonizes, creates pleasantness and pleasure. As such, Venus is associated with niceties, beauty. Oftentimes it's associated with love, but love is probably a little bit more complicated. I always feel like Venus is maybe given a little too much credit for that. But nonetheless, if you were going to pick any planet, you would probably say love is most associated with Venus. Negatively, though, Venus is associated about with enforcing social rules and the status quo and social order. So temperamentally, Venus is cool and wet, and I already mentioned its association with love. Now, Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces, which is the sign of the fish. And there are two fish, so already you can see there's this idea of two separate things that are sort of being harmonized with each other there. And obviously, two people can fall in love. It's only a small percent of the population is only capable of falling in love with themselves, right? So Pisces is associated with optimism, fluidity, mysticism, as well as being whole. It's that last sign of the zodiac. So a lot of times there's this idea of completion. Uh, Pisces is a mutable sign, which is to say that it's very changeable. And if you think of a fish is very slippery. And so Pisces is ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is a planet associated with expansion as well as the big picture, kind of capital T truth, not getting too into the details and into the weeds. And here in the sign of Pisces, the tendency to unify, be pleasant, and enjoy pleasure can take advantage of Pisces' flexibility and the big picture, not getting hung up on details. In Pisces, Venus's negative tendencies towards social rules and social order are reduced. It doesn't really, get too hung up on, okay, we need to do this and therefore this, a lot of justification and stuff like that, and live and let live, right? Kind of a very Jupiterian sense. And that real kind of not getting very specific about stuff, a specific philosophy that you might see in Sagittarius, there's not really that much of that in Pisces. So Venus is actually helped out as a result of that. And Piscean beauty is usually focused on positivity and ease, kind of a natural beauty. So if you think of like the ease of flowing water in a stream, there's nothing, doesn't need to do anything. It just needs to be itself and kind of go where it needs to go. It doesn't need anything extra to be beautiful as it is. So just to recap, Venus is therefore at its best when it brings to bring pleasantness, love, and unification. When it doesn't sweat the small stuff, has hopefulness, feels expansive, but without that specific, getting hung up on a specific philosophy or trying to make things up in the air. Instead, it's more of an embodied, watery feeling rather than the fiery feeling of philosophy and arguing and stuff like that that you might get with Sagittarius. Now, Venus's fall is in the sign of Virgo. Virgo, in contrast to Pisces, is about purification, attention to detail, and is ruled by Mercury. There's also a little bit of like an almost sign-based anxiety associated with Virgo, right? Needing to make things, clean, pure, everything is in its right spot. And it's ruled by Mercury, which pays attention to facts. And Mercury can make distinctions between things. I left that word things off there, but you get the idea. And unfortunately for Venus, it's harder for Venus to unify and be pleasant when purification is top of mind, right? It's difficult to take pleasure in things too when you're hung up on things being perfect. I can't do this thing just yet because things aren't perfect yet. It's almost like the beauty, if you think about it, on a wedding day, there's a whole lot of pain and a lot of anxiety leading up to that perfect moment. It's very difficult, but everything is in the devil's in the details, as they say. And in Virgo, Venus's negative tendencies towards social rules and social order are emphasized. And when it comes to beauty, we have Venus's reminder that beauty is pain from figures like Kim Kardashian and Kylie Jenner, who are beautiful, but you really know that there's a lot of little extra work that they've had done behind the scenes. And it was also interesting that Kris Jenner also has an exiled Venus in Scorpio, but she is a Virgo rising. But of those three, from the Kardashian clan, we have, the most beautiful, you would argue, Khloe Kardashian doesn't have like this emphasis on Virgo Venus. Instead, it takes she looks a little bit different. Those that sort of idea of getting work done or the emphasis on makeup and stuff like that doesn't quite come together as well for her, in my opinion. Uh, Regardless, therefore, and I already mentioned this, so I forgot to do the flip side of this, which is to say that Venus, therefore, does least well when it has to sweat the small stuff, is more anxious and really focused on attention to detail. There's all that ease of beauty and pleasantness and all that is way harder to do when you have to get a whole lot of things right. There's sort of that anxiety related to Venus. So that's it for this talk on the exaltation and fall of Venus. If you are interested in getting an astrology reading, you can reach out to me at skymirror.today and feel free to follow me at michaelmgerard.bsky.social. Thanks so much.